Confession of a betrayed partner. How curiosity drove her to deceit, a genuine tale of infidelity. What if curiosity carries consequences beyond mere innocence? What if a simple question could transform everything? My narrative isn't centered on love, but rather explores the delicate balance between longing and remorse. It is often said that curiosity led to the cat's demise. Indeed, a sense of wonder transformed my existence in ways I never anticipated. Before I embark on sharing my tale, I wish to express my gratitude to all who stand by my creative journey. If this tale captivates you, be sure to subscribe for more. Allow me to transport you to the moment it all started. I never imagined I would be the type of woman to doubt her marriage, much less betray it. I was married to Paul, a truly admirable man in every sense of the word. He was affectionate, diligent, and the type of partner that many women fantasize about. Yet, at times, even a strong union may seem mediocre. It began as a simple idea one evening while I was browsing on my phone. I stumbled upon an article titled, "Does Size Really Matter?" It was undeniably clickbait, but my curiosity simply couldn't resist. While I immersed myself in the words, reflections on my own existence began to surface. Paul and I had shared a decade together, and although our closeness remained steady, it lacked the explosive passion one might expect. He was unremarkable in every aspect. Soothing, reliable, and indeed, modest in dimensions. I had never given it much thought before, or so I believed. However, that article sparked an idea in my thoughts. It wasn't that I felt any unhappiness or dissatisfaction. The uncertainty was what troubled me. What if size truly held significance? What if I were overlooking something truly remarkable? For weeks, that idea lingered in the recesses of my thoughts. It was a topic I couldn't discuss with Paul. How do you express to your husband that you're intrigued by what lies beyond? The burden of even considering the notion pressed heavily upon me, yet the allure of curiosity proved to be more powerful. One night, after Paul went to bed, I found myself exploring topics I never imagined I would look up. Narratives, discussions, revelations. It felt as though I had unleashed a whirlwind of chaos. Women recounted their experiences, with many noting that size played a significant role. A peculiar blend of exhilaration and remorse washed over me as I immersed myself in the pages. Was it inappropriate to ponder? Ultimately, mere wondering fell short. I convinced myself it was merely for research, merely to quench my curiosity. I set up a profile on a dating site using a pseudonym. I opted not to include my photo, instead providing only a general description of what I sought. It was an exhilarating experience, unlike anything I had encountered in years. The messages began to flood in right away. Individuals of various kinds, sharing images and confident introductions. Some were crude, others delightful, yet I had a singular standard. I sought an individual who matched the criteria of my vision, and then I discovered him. His name was Jake. A man in his early 30s. Exuding confidence with a smile that captivated, complemented by a physique that spoke of dedication, his messages carried a playful charm, yet maintained a sense of respect. And he confidently tackled the very topic that piqued my interest. "This is wild," I mused as we traded messages deep into the night. Jake lived roughly an hour away, and appeared truly interested in meeting. He was gentle, never made me feel devalued. Instead, he filled me with a sense of vitality. I convinced myself it was merely a single time, just to observe, just to understand. As I sat there in bed with my phone radiating in the shadows, I was oblivious to how that singular choice would cascade into a situation beyond my grasp. My heart raced as I prepared that afternoon. Paul was at work, and I had informed him that I was meeting an old friend for coffee. In a sense, it wasn't completely a fabrication. I was meeting someone new, and I would surely enjoy a coffee before heading home. Ultimately, that's the reasoning I settled on for myself. Jake and I had arranged to meet at a quaint hotel just off the highway. It was neither a budget-friendly, dilapidated spot nor a lavish one. Just concealed enough to safeguard my secrets. As I drove, a knot of nerves tightened in my stomach. I crossed the line the moment I signed up for that dating site, but meeting him in person. That was an entirely different dimension of treachery. Still, I found myself unable to cease. The force was overwhelming. Upon my arrival, Jake was already present in the lobby, awaiting my entrance. He stood taller than I had envisioned, possessing broad shoulders and a smile that could disarm anyone. He approached me with an easy demeanor, as though we were long-lost friends reuniting after many years. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with warmth and assurance. I nodded, feeling too anxious to speak. My thoughts were shouting at me to turn back, to escape before I made a choice I couldn't undo, yet my body remained anchored, irresistibly drawn to him in a manner I couldn't articulate. We made the most of our time. Jake had secured a room in advance. Upon entering, a surge of guilt enveloped me. The wedding ring weighed heavily on my finger, a quiet reminder of the vows I was on the brink of breaking. "This is your final opportunity to reconsider," Jake stated, his gaze probing into mine. I paused, but just for an instant. "I want this," I whispered, as though voicing it more forcefully might somehow bring it to life. The subsequent hours unfolded in a haze of sensations, unlike anything I had ever encountered. Jake was everything I had encountered in literature and more, exuding confidence, attentiveness, and undeniable skill. For the first time in my life, I experienced a pleasure that was nearly overwhelming. Once it concluded, we remained there in quietude. I gazed at the ceiling, my thoughts swirling with a tumult of emotions. Guilt, excitement, shame, and satisfaction intertwined in a tumultuous blend. Jake turned to me, his fingers drawing slow, languid circles on my arm. "Was it truly worthwhile?" he inquired. I was unable to meet his gaze. Instead, I nodded, biting my lip to suppress the tears that threatened to spill. It was worth it. And that was the most chilling aspect. I had just put everything on the line for a single afternoon. And I was certain I would do it once more. Before I left, Jake kissed me gently and said, "No pressure, but if you ever want to see me again, you know where to locate me." I convinced myself it was just a fleeting moment, yet beneath the surface, I recognized the truth of my deception. As I drove home, I revisited each moment in my mind, contrasting it with the years I had shared with Paul. It wasn't merely the physical difference. It was how Jake ignited a sense of vitality within me, making me feel wanted and cherished. Complimentary. As I stepped into my home, Paul welcomed me with a friendly smile. "How did the coffee turn out?" he inquired, drawing me into an embrace. It was pleasant, I deceived, my tone unwavering even with the turmoil within me. That night, as I lay beside my husband, my thoughts were consumed by Jake. The inquisitiveness that had propelled me to this juncture had morphed into something significantly more perilous. I had moved beyond mere curiosity. I was captivated. I awoke the morning after my second meeting with Jake, sensing a shift within me. There was no turning back now. What began as a simple curiosity had evolved into something far more significant. Something I wasn't certain I could manage. Each look at Paul's trusting face sent a twist through my stomach, yet that guilt couldn't overshadow the magnetic pull Jake had on me. Paul stayed completely oblivious. He was preoccupied with work and our daily routine, oblivious to the transformations within me. Ultimately, that's the narrative I crafted for myself. I focused on being present at home, preparing his favorite dishes and inquiring about his day. It felt as though I was trying to make up for the weight of the guilt I bore. He believed I was merely being kind, oblivious to the fact that my careful attention concealed a far more sinister truth, yet, the reality was that my mind was entirely occupied by Jake. Each message he sent my heart racing. Each caress and kiss echoed in my thoughts as I lay beside Paul at night. I began to yearn for Jake, not merely in a physical sense, but on a deeper emotional level. The issue extended beyond the thrill that Jake infused into the situation. The difference stood out. With him, I experienced a sense of desire, adventure, and vitality. With Paul, I experienced a sense of security, yet there was a lack of stimulation. I reassured myself that it was only instinctive to desire both, to possess the steadiness of my union and the fervor Jake offered. The justifications flowed more readily as time passed, running errands, hitting the gym, and enjoying lunch dates with friends. Each deception was presented with an alluring grin. Paul never challenged me, and that made it all too simple. I despised deceiving him, yet I found myself unable to put an end to it. Jake, for his part, never pressed for more than I was ready to offer. He never inquired about Paul or my existence beyond our gatherings. In a manner that simplified the process of categorizing what we possessed, our time together was akin to entering a different realm. A place devoid of my duties and the weight of remorse. The longer I was with Jake, the clearer it became why I couldn't pull away. It wasn't merely the physical aspect, although that was certainly a component of it. It was how he made me feel acknowledged. The manner in which he revealed a part of me I had never realized was there. With Jake, I was more than just a wife or a homemaker. I was a woman, full of life and energy. One evening, after yet another afternoon spent with Jake, I returned home to discover Paul waiting for me with dinner prepared. "I thought I'd surprise you," he said, a smile spreading across his face. In that moment, the gravity of my actions struck me profoundly. Here stood my husband, the individual who remained by my side through it all. The man who continued to gaze at me as if I were the sole woman in existence. And here I stood, deceiving him time and again. I pressed my lips to his cheek and expressed my gratitude, making a conscious effort to set aside thoughts of Jake. That evening, I made a decision to put an end to it. However, I was unable to. The following week, I found myself once again in Jake's embrace. The addiction overshadowed my guilt, eclipsed my love for Paul. Each time I convinced myself it would be the final occasion, I found myself returning to the very beginning. Jake didn't request anything beyond what I offered, yet he was aware that I was captivated. "You keep saying it's the last time," he teased one afternoon as we lay tangled in the sheets. I chuckled. "Yet there was nothing amusing about it. It's intricate," I remarked. "Life always is," he said, gently pushing a strand of hair away from my face. The reality was, I had no desire to cease. The idea of letting Jake go felt like severing a piece of my very being. Yet, I was aware that I couldn't maintain this for an indefinite period. The deceptions were accumulating. And it was only a matter of time before something would break. For the moment, I set those thoughts aside. I was unprepared to confront the repercussions, not at this moment. My existence had transformed into a meticulously crafted spectacle, a delicate dance I never envisioned myself mastering. To Paul, I remained the same devoted partner, reliable and unwavering. I chuckled at his humor, organized our meals, and ensured our life together flowed seamlessly, yet, underneath that sleek exterior, I was coming apart at the seams. Jake had turned into a craving I couldn't shake off. It wasn't merely the physical thrill, although that was undeniable. It was how he stirred emotions within me. In his presence, I transcended the roles of merely being Paul's wife, or a woman merely navigating the routine of an expected existence. I was lively, bold, and completely captivated by the charm of something taboo. Paul was completely unaware of anything amiss. His trust in me was unwavering, and that only intensified the surreal nature of my actions. It felt as if my hidden existence unfolded in a different realm, one that never intersected with the secure, predictable haven of my marriage. Jake and I began to meet more frequently. Our secret encounters turning into the most cherished part of my week. He created a sense of ease that allowed one to overlook the repercussions, to dismiss the dangers. With him, there were no strings, no demands, just an endless, exhilarating adventure. One afternoon, as we reclined together in a serene hotel room, Jake glanced at me with a relaxed smile. "You understand this won't endure indefinitely, correct?" His words took me by surprise. "What are you trying to say?" I inquired, supporting myself on one elbow. "You have a life," he stated plainly. "A partner who holds you in the highest regard. I'm not suggesting we halt, but it's important to recognize that this sort of thing has a time limit. I preferred to avoid that thought. Jake had transformed into my refuge, my hidden getaway from the dullness of daily existence. Letting him go felt like a piece of my soul slipping away. I softly confessed that I wasn't ready for it to end. Jake leaned in, gently tucking a strand of hair behind my ear, let's just forget about it, he said with a smile. Drawing me back into his embrace. At home, life continued as it always did. Paul remained as focused and reliable as always, and I ensured that I fulfilled my part flawlessly. I had mastered the skill of compartmentalization, ensuring my two worlds remained distinct. I persuaded myself that as long as Paul remained unaware, no damage was occurring. However, the reality was that I was beginning to slip from my grasp. Jake filled my mind endlessly. Every message from him sent my heart racing. Each look at my phone served as a reminder of the existence I was concealing. I began to embrace greater risks, challenging the limits of what I believed I could manage. Lengthy shopping excursions. Prolonged lunch gatherings with companions. Each deception flowed more effortlessly than the one before. Paul had unwavering faith in me, and that faith served as my protective barrier. One evening, as Paul and I sat on the couch watching a movie, I found myself once more drawing comparisons between him and Jake. Paul embodied all the qualities I should have desired: consistent, compassionate, and dependable. However, Jake was unique. Otherwise completely. He brought a sense of vitality to my life that Paul never managed to evoke. I despised myself for having those thoughts. Paul was not worthy of any of this. He was a decent man, a caring husband who had done nothing to deserve my treachery, and yet, I found myself unable to cease. The manner in which he revealed a facet of myself I had yet to discover. One afternoon, as I sat in my car after another meeting with Jake, I gazed at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I hardly recognized the woman staring back at me. She exuded confidence, boldness, and an unapologetic spirit. Yet, she was also a deceiver, a person who had constructed her existence on falsehoods. I assured myself I could persist. This up. As long as I exercised caution, Paul would remain oblivious. Perhaps he wouldn't. However, the fissures were beginning to emerge, not within my marriage, but within myself. The weeks spent with Jake stretched into months, and my double life evolved into my new normal. It was draining, perpetually balancing the two realms, yet the excitement of it propelled me forward. Each encounter with Jake was akin to entering a surreal fantasy. Each return to Paul felt like a jolt back to reality, yet aspirations are not eternal. One afternoon, as I reclined beside Jake in yet another tranquil hotel room, he gazed at me with a fervor that caused my heart to constrict. "Have you ever contemplated the direction this is heading?" he inquired. His tone calm yet unwavering. I averted my eyes, focusing on the intricate patterns woven into the sheets instead. "What do you mean, this?" he remarked, gesturing between us. "I understand your deep affection for your husband. I'm not looking to get involved with that. However, you cannot continue to divide yourself in this manner." I swallowed hard. His words slicing through the fog I had been immersed in. He was indeed correct. Despite my desire to maintain a clear divide between the two worlds, the reality was that I was dancing with danger. Jake's hand grasped mine, his touch both tender and resolute. "You've got to determine what you truly desire, Claire. I'm not expressing this to distance myself. But you can't continue balancing on this thin line. It will inevitably break at some point." His words lingered in my mind long after I departed that day. For the first time, I found it impossible to shake off the guilt and maintain the facade that everything was all right. I cherished Paul. I truly did. Yet, with Jake, I discovered something I hadn't realized I was lacking. That night, as I lay in bed beside Paul, sleep eluded me. I observed him inhale, his expression gentle and serene in the muted glow. He was unaware of the tempest within me. The decisions I was compelled to confront. I reflected on all that Jake had brought into my life: intensity, exhilaration, and the electrifying allure of the unfamiliar. However, I also contemplated what I might lose. Paul was more than just my husband. He was my companion, my confidant, the one who had crafted a life alongside me. The following morning, I reached a conclusion. I encountered Jake one final time, the burden of my decision weighing heavily on me throughout the journey. As I entered the room, he welcomed me with his characteristic charm. Yet there was a perceptive glint in his eyes. Gaze, this is the moment, isn't it? He spoke in a gentle whisper. I nodded, tears welling at the edges of my eyes. I can't continue with this, Jake. I cherish my husband. I cherish my existence, and I can't keep putting it on the line for this. Jake remained silent and made no effort to persuade me otherwise. Instead, he extended his hand and grasped mine. I understand, he remarked, and for what it's worth, I wish you discover all that you seek. I smiled through my tears, thankful for his empathy. Parting with him felt like releasing a fragment of my being, yet I understood it was the correct choice to make. As I made my way home that day, I experienced an unusual tranquility. I had discovered the solution to the inquiry that initiated everything. Did size hold significance? Indeed, it held significance in methods I hadn't anticipated. However, it wasn't all there was. The essence of my existence lay in the life I had crafted alongside Paul, in the love and trust that bound us together. As I walked through the door, there was Paul, smiling just like he always did. I embraced him firmly, pressing my face against his chest and inhaling his familiar aroma. What is this for? He inquired, chuckling gently. Just because, I said, my voice heavy with feeling. I was certain I had chosen wisely. Jake revealed an aspect of myself that I hadn't realized I was missing. Ultimately, what truly held significance was my family. My marriage and the life I shared with Paul, overshadowing everything else. Walking away wasn't simple, and the memories of Jake would probably stay with me for a long while. However, I had reached my conclusion. My curiosity almost led to my downfall, yet it also illuminated the essence of what truly holds significance. Paul was better off without knowing the truth. I would bear that weight by myself. All he needed to understand was that I loved him, and that our life together held more value than any passing temptation, and that sufficed for me.